Hi guys, welcome to this tactical video. This one is for Eldar in 8th edition and I am talking about the Falcon Grav-Tank. This one is a funny one in that you barely ever see it on the table. To be honest, I don't think I've ever seen a Falcon on the table that isn't this one that I use, which is a bit of a shame. And I also see a lot of time in forums and things like that where people often lament the fact that the Falcon isn't really getting used, which is a shame. Historically speaking, it's always been overcosted, too expensive, and I feel like it pays a massive premium for what it is, primarily because it has a transport capacity. Okay, but before we go into that, let's go over what it costs and what you actually get. So, the power is 9, which is not too bad. There's no power upgrades you can take. Primarily, at its basic level, shuriken cannon there, and pulse laser and twin shuriken catapults. That's 140 points for this tank. Okay, what you get is a weapon skill 6 up, of course, strength 6. At base, it will have 3 attacks as always. Of course, that degrades depending on what happens. It's toughness 7. It's got 12 wounds, so more than a rhino. Leadership 8 and a 3 up save, so pretty standard. Yes, it has 1 less wound than the Wave Serpent. Who the hell knows what they were thinking? This is supposed to be a battle tank. Now, the Pulse Laser is pretty good. It's like a Bright Lance, except it's 48 inches of range, and it's heavy 2 instead of heavy 1. So that's pretty good. Same stats otherwise in that it's strength 8. It's AP minus 3, which is pretty good. And it does a flat 3 damage, which honestly I would take over a d6 damage most times. I actually prefer consistent damage that is an average, even if it's slightly lower, than rolling a d6, because that can really screw you, unless you have some other kind of damage dealing mechanic, or you've got multiple shots, that kind of thing. But if we're talking a single shot, I'd rather have damage 3. Now bear in mind this is 2 shots, so that's even better. I'm not going to go over the stats of the shuriken weapons, you should probably know those by now. War gear options. It can, of course, change the shuriken catapult, twin shuriken catapults I should say, to a shuriken cannon as well, so you can have double shuriken cannons. Not bad for anti-infantry. Bear in mind they are assault weapons, so that's good. Or it can replace its existing shuriken cannon on the turret with a heavy weapon from the heavy weapons list. As you can see here, I've got a star cannon on there, which I think is probably my favourite accompaniment to this, but I actually have this tank magnetised so I can change the weapon loadout as needed. So that's what you have. It can of course take items from the vehicle equipment list. I will go over those in a bit. It's a hover tank, so it has fly, which is fantastic on a tank. It means you can jump up and down towers, you can literally fly up and down as you need, you can go over objects, you don't care. If you get assaulted, you can move out of combat and still shoot, which is huge, because most things do not have that. You're not affected by that. And its movement speed is 16 inches base, which is really fast. It's crazy fast. So bearing in mind, if you do have the shuriken cannons on here, or even the twin shuriken catapult still, you can advance this thing and still shoot those weapons, just not the pulse laser. So you could go even faster. Of course you'd have a -1 to hit, but you know, that's not terrible in a crutch situation. The other good thing, of course, is that it is a transport. You can carry 6 models, which is basically like the Razorback for Space Marine fame. That's basically the only comparison this has, in that it's a transport with 6 capacity to a Razorback, because it's very different in terms of its actual role in practice, is what I find. So the main thing about the Falcon is, you are getting something which is a dedicated battle tank. This is kind of like a Space Marine Predator, okay? The weapons are slightly different, but you could effectively make it almost as good, depending on how many points you want to spend on it. If you want to take the Bright Lance, that pairs pretty well with the Pulse Laser in dealing with anti-tank. I went for the Star Cannon because it's another 2 shots, so I'm getting 4 shots in total. That's the same AP. It was originally 3 damage, but they nerfed it down to D3 damage. Yes, it's lower strength, strength 6, but I'm not really using this to deal with vehicles. I'm using this to deal with elite infantry and elite creatures, because that 3 damage on the pulse laser and the D3 damage on here means it's very good against things like Terminators, anything with multiple wounds like bikes, that kind of thing. So that's what I use it for. I basically keep these on here because they're on the model. This model was second-hand before I stripped it and painted it. I didn't change the weapon loadout here. But to be honest, it's been doing fine with the twin shuriken catapults. It usually shoots at some infantry nearby. And because it is a Falcon, it has transport. It usually has some infantry nearby, enemy infantry I should say, because it wants to deliver its payload. Now what I usually put in here is a squad of 5 Dire Avengers, because they can hop out at some point, lend some supporting fire, shoot, charge if they really need to, they're not terrible in the assault, or just hop out, grab an objective as this thing's flying by. The Falcon seems to excel the most in situations where it's not the most prominent target, because it's not getting shot at, but it actually does a decent amount of damage. So say if you have fire prisms, a lot of people will prioritise the fire prism, especially now it gets to shoot twice, that kind of thing, with their anti-tank weapons, especially long-range ones. Or wave serpents, they will definitely try and kill those wave serpents first. Maybe you have something like a Wraith Knight, or something like that. Or, at the end of the day, maybe you've just got multiple Falcons. All these are good ways of keeping this thing alive. Having said that, if it does start taking fire, it's not the most unsurvivable thing. Okay, because basically, even if it takes a lot of firepower in, it might be less good at shooting, but it can still function in protecting your troops, such again as Dire Avengers. And if it comes down to that, it can just, fly away, focus on the objectives. Even at half speeds, it's not terrible, it's still fairly fast. And it can protect units against assaults, provided it doesn't get surrounded. There's nothing stopping that unit, if the Falcon is in assault, in just getting out the back and doing something else completely. So it's not terrible. And again, the Falcon can always fly away anyway, if it doesn't want to unload things. The other strength of the Falcon is, if it is moving up the field, and it usually hangs around midfield for me, but until the end game at the very least, and then it starts flying forward, try and get line breaker, hold objectives, get some good shots on what's remaining. But the strength of this is if you have a basic Falcon, the units you have up front, especially for Eldar, because they're very fragile, are probably very weakened. You may have 1 or 2 little units, models left in a unit. Maybe it's a couple of Scorpions left, maybe it's 1 Howling Banshee, maybe it's an Autarch who's severely injured. They can just hop back in this tank and it can fly them to safety, There is nothing stopping you pulling them out to keep them alive. And those guys can sit on the objectives, their job's done effectively, get them out there, and that's where the Falcon is good. Remember, every Eldar life is precious. You want to save them if you can. So Falcon's great at being basically like an ambulance. It goes up, it kills things at shooting. It's actually decently effective at shooting. Then it rescues people and flies them where they need to be to win you the game. That's not bad. And of course it can have its payload first as well, so it's got double roll. Okay, now is this better than a Wave Serpent? Honestly, no. Because Wave Serpents have an extra wound, because they have that Serpent shield, and because they can still take a lot of anti-tank weapons, the Bright Lance, or they're even better at anti-infantry because you can't swap the pulse laser on this. That's where the Wave Serpent's better, okay? So if you want a big squad transporting, that's where you use a Wave Serpent, okay? If you have the Fire Prism, okay, is it better than a Fire Prism? No, it's not, because a Fire Prism has far longer range. It's got more versatility in how it shoots, it's easier to buff, it's easier to keep alive, and of course, it's more flexible, generally speaking, and it does double the shots, so you're going to do more damage output overall than the Falcon, okay? So as a gun line battle tank, it's less good than the Fire Prism, although it does have that transport, remember. As a midfield tank, designed to kill elite infantry monsters, be flexible, such as Dire Avengers are flexible, because they can engage a variety of targets equally well, that's where the Falcon excels, okay? It's a small niche, but depending on the army you have, there may be a lot of room for a Falcon, okay? And what I would recommend is, especially if you have small squads of 5 and there's wasted capacity on your Wave Serpents, I would strongly recommend trying out a Falcon at least once or twice. Okay, see how you get on with it, because that pulse laser is very flexible in a lot of ways. Most infantry it's wounding on 2s, which is good, but it can also reach out anywhere on the board because it's super long range, and you know, it's equally decent against vehicles and that kind of thing. You know, say you fired your fire prism at a tank, you're trying to blow it up, this thing can just reach out with its pulse laser and just finish it off. And it can fire its other weapons at other things if ideal, or maybe it lends the support from them as well. That's where the Falcon's good. Now as for other upgrades, the vehicle equipment upgrades, one of the ones you should definitely always consider is the crystal targeting matrix for just 5 points. Because what this does is it means you don't suffer the -1 penalty for shooting heavy weapons after moving, provided you shoot at the closest enemy unit. With a 16-inch move, it's very easy to keep the unit you want as the closest enemy unit. If you can't do that, chances are you can just sit still and you'll still be able to fire at that unit with full ballistic skill. And because it's such a versatile tank, maybe you were trying to go for a different unit, but there's no way possible, and it's rare, but there's no way possible that you can make it the closest enemy unit. You can still shoot, say, an infantry unit like Space Marines that are in cover and that kind of thing, and it's still decent because it's such a flexible kind of weapon loadout in this situation especially. So that's why I like the Star Cannon so much on it, because it blends so well with the pulse laser. And it's only 5 points more than the Shuriken Cannon anyway, so why not? That's where the strength of the Falcon lies. It's a very narrow gap, and in truth, in 40k, narrow gaps of performance are not a good thing, because the broader something is, the more versatile something is, the better it will be overall. But if you get good at using it, that narrow gap helps your versatility overall. I hope what I'm saying is making any kind of sense to you right now, but yeah, it's very much if you practice with it, you'll start to get the strengths from it. So it's a tough one. It's an obscure one looking at it from the surface. The other upgrades I would consider, it's easy to go crazy on the upgrades on this thing. Personally, I would consider the Spirit Stones, so it has the 6-up Feel No Pain. It'll help keep it alive if it gets shot at, but honestly, you might not need that, especially if you're playing as Ulfway. You definitely won't need that. Or if you have enough Psykers that Fortune is readily available, it's probably not worth taking in that sense. The Yandin Craftworld rules are very good for tanks, obviously, because it means this thing is still performing at peak capacity for a lot longer, and that's good on something like the Falcon. But that is effectively it for the Falcon battle tank. So, tricky one, but I am a big fan of it. And to be honest, I've used it in every game I've played of 8 so far, and it's done me proud. It's never died in a single go, and that's probably because I have many other targets, such as Wraith Lords, that kind of thing, which are much more they're a much higher priority than this thing. Because of that, it's pretty decent as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I've waffled on enough about this, so hopefully this video is useful. If you liked it, remember to click that like button below. And of course, share your feedback. What do you think about the Falcon tank? Share it below. And stay tuned, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Thanks for watching. See you next time.